right, we ready? It's 11:30. It is January 20th. Welcome to the first meeting of 2021 of the Economic Growth and Development Committee. Before we get into it's a beautiful day. And before we get into the agenda items, I'd like to just thank the former chairman of this committee, Supervisor Wild, for his excellent work last year, especially with the task force. That was really, really something that the partnership there is something that I'm really hoping we can carry forward, and I'm looking forward to that. I had hoped that I could reach out to each of the committee members before this meeting to set some goals. I did not manage to do that. So over the next month, I will be speaking with each of you, and we'll talk about what we would like to accomplish this year as a group. I will say that I have some suggestions, and the very first goal that I think we should set is to support our public health in any way that we can. Second, I'd like to continue to receive and respond to the recommendations from the task force. That, as I said before, that's been a great partnership, and Jim Siplon's here with us from EDC to talk a little bit about the task force and EDC as well. So Jim, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Andrea, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. It's good to see you all. As all of the changes have gone in place at the county, we have reiterated a consistent message to Rachel, to Andrea, and to all, which is, our role continues to be to attract, to grow, and to support the business community here. We've added quite a bit of texture in the past year in terms of helping to coordinate the response to COVID and the unique aspects that we've learned through it. And we now find ourselves advocating more aggressively for things like broadband and for other infrastructure investments, and also to help us understand and manage the migration of professionals who are relocating to our area in a way that is aligned with what our economic plans and future are. With that in mind, we've had quite a bit of conversation about how to best manage the various aspects of the public and private partnership that have manifested through the task force, as Andrea refers. Roughly 9-10 months ago, the community stepped forward with the county to try to forge a way for us to work nimbly in responding to the crisis we were all in together. And I think it has been very successful. And obviously the EDC would love to continue to partner with the county and with others to do this going forward. Oftentimes this has started to break into very detailed conversations about specific areas. So for instance, tourism and hospitality is an area of great focus and will continue to be. But what we'd like to do is to make sure that we continue to also meet the needs of just being able to respond quickly as we attempt to manage through the vaccine era that we're in now and the recovery that we will be in for some time. There are many programs, some almost being launched daily, some at the state level, some at the federal level. And it can be very difficult for people to keep track of all of that. And what we see as part of our role is to help not only communicate those, but to help people navigate those. So that will be an ongoing task that we take on behalf of the county. I've shared with Andrea and with Rachel and anyone else that we've been able to talk to in the past week that any role that is consistent with EDC's charter, we would step into to assist here. And I think that may mean us coordinating at least part of what is the task force community. And so we're organizing with Andrea and Rachel to be able to do that. When we do that, we will do that in a way where hopefully it's fairly seamless for those that have already participated. We will just simply become the facilitators of the meeting itself and the organizers of it. I fully expect there will continue to be county participation in that, although I'll let Andrea and Rachel and others speak to that. But of course, we would welcome any participation from any supervisor, including those that are associated with this committee. So with that in mind, I just want to highlight 2 or 3 things that are really important and timely for us. One is this week we will launch the second wave of our broadband initiative that we've been working on for several months, and that is the public survey and speed test component. Don Lehman and I and Sarah were all on a call this morning to assure readiness with the vendor that's about to do that. And in fact, we've tested it a number of times. Some of you may have already seen it. I know Sarah's engaged with it already. And this is really a wonderful opportunity for everyone in our county to not only have their voice be heard, but for us to collect data that will drive our decisions. So there will be a press release and a formal announcement of this that Don will help orchestrate. And then we as an EDC will communicate with each municipality, with each school district, and with all of the healthcare institutions in the county to ensure that, number one, they know about it. Number two, that we're there to answer any questions. And number three, that we encourage their participation. Our goal is to make sure that we can fully characterize what we do or don't have, what people's perception of that service is, how much it costs, and what we still need in order for us to be the economic engine that we would like to be and the civic engine that we need to be. So there will be much more to be heard about this, but this effort to gather this data will go on for 2 months. Our goal is to at least get 5% of the county to participate, but I'm hopeful that we will get much more than that. And we're specifically focused on trying to ensure we get the broadest participation possible in the far reaches of the county where we believe the need is most great. And so you will hear quite a bit about this from us and others over the coming weeks. Any questions that you have about that, though, you can clearly direct to us. Another thing that we're attempting to do quickly is organize a group of people that will help us develop a consistent way of measuring economic impact for many of the things that we work on in the task force. We've had great participation with SUNY and some of their esteemed academics and professionals, and we're hoping to team with them this week. I'm meeting with them this week to talk about how we can build a statistically valid but also easily understood and maintained scorecard for any of the economic impacts associated with the things that we are working on. So for instance, if we're looking at tourism, we have current up-to-date information about the economic impact of tourism, the tax base associated with tourism, the employment associated with tourism, and use that as a reference point for any decisions or recommendations that we would make. The same would be true of other sectors of our economy, the manufacturing sector of the economy, the service sector of our economy. And we'll work on these one piece at a time. And then I guess the last thing I would like to do is to just make sure that all of you know that we continue to have very vibrant engagement with those that are looking to invest or develop here. In the month of December, there were 8 specific inquiries to the EDC from business entities, and they spanned the entire county. There was 1 in Glens Falls, 2 in Queensbury, 2 in Lake George, 2 in Warrensburg, even 1 in Chestertown, which we were really wonderfully glad to support. Now, all of these are at different stages of their maturity, but what that means is that over the course of the pandemic, there were nearly 100 inquiries that came from people, mostly from outside of the county, who are looking at the possibility of moving or expanding their business here. That is a wonderful, healthy sign for us and something that we will continue to report to you about. Some of these have actually materialized. For instance, Birch Packaging is nearing the point at which they will stand up their operations on Corinth Road. And Just Beverages, where I'm most uniquely from, is expanding their operation and has added 2 new lines in the last year. Kirsch Helmets, which is in Queensbury, is also expanding their manufacturing operations. These are just examples of those that have been willing to allow us to talk publicly about them, but there are many others besides them. And I want you to feel heartened about the fact that not only is this a good indication for our economic vitality, but it's something that we continue to put our full support and resources behind. So, Andrea, that's what we have for the moment. We're eager to help you.
Thank you, Jim. Does anybody have questions for Jim? Amanda, anybody in the boardroom? Supervisor Leggett.
And thank you, Chairwoman Hogan. So the task force will continue on? Okay.
I don't want to speak for Andrea, but certainly our support of it continues on, and we will organize and facilitate that in ways that make sense with the structures that Andrea and Rachel are laying out. But clearly, our goal is to keep that moving forward and to advance the work that Supervisor Wild and others have already invested in.
Yeah, he put a lot into that, and it really helped get us through that season there. So let's continue. Thank you.
Absolutely. Supervisor Leggett, that was an excellent question. And I think I said it once already, but it bears reiterating. I think all of the supervisors support the task force and the work that they've done. Certainly in the past year, we see the value and we see the potential in going forward, and we all want to be involved in it. Unfortunately, because we are a public body, we also run into public meeting law issues. So for our committee, I would like to see one or two of our committee joining the task force meetings on a weekly basis. And we'll just have to coordinate with one another to make sure we don't constitute a quorum at any given time. But yes, we hope that they will move forward. They are dedicated volunteers, and their work is appreciated and will be appreciated. Anybody else have any questions for Jim while we've got him here? No? Well, thank you, Jim. We appreciate you being here with us. Have a good week. We'll see you next month. Into the agenda. Let's start with approving the minutes from the November 24th meeting. All but one of you were there. Has everybody had a chance to look those minutes over? Does anybody want to move them? Come on, people.
So moved.
I'll second.
Supervisor Leggett.
Leggett on the motion and Wild on the second. Any discussion? Changes? Comments? Questions? Yes. Is that Supervisor Merlino?
Yep, I will abstain from this note because I wasn't involved with it last year, but I will be this year. Thank you.
Okay, but you were present. You can vote on it. We were told earlier today you can vote because you were present, even though you weren't on the committee. But thank you. Anybody else? All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Carried. Great. All right, Liza, you're up.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Good morning, everyone. Excuse me. I plan to just share some updates today. However, I did have a last minute request as we learned about a virtual conference opportunity. I would like to send two of my employees to. NIATEP, New York Association of Training and Employment Professionals, is hosting a youth practitioners learning lab to get youth more engaged in the workforce on March 30th. So I do have one request for authorization to send or register two of my employees for that conference. Chairwoman, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Anybody want to make a motion to send these people to the training? It's virtual.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. Yes, Amanda.
Can I just make a note? That does not require committee action. That's something that's approved by the county administrator, and then it will come to you for approval. It's mostly just an FYI to let you know that they are.
Okay, cool. Even better. Go ahead, Liza.
Thank you. So I have several updates I wanted to share with the committee, especially since there are new members of the committee. We continue to have about a 5% unemployment rate, and stop me anytime. I have several updates. So I just wanted to share a few data points. So we continue to have about a 5% unemployment rate, but we know that doesn't account for about 1,500 people who are not in the workforce right now. And so we keep that in mind. We are happy or content with the partial unemployment claims announcement that started as of Monday this week. So folks can now file for unemployment for hours worked instead of days not worked. And we do feel like that is an incentive to get people back to work part-time while they look for full-time work. It also helps businesses who are ramping back up employment, and it allows them to start with some part-time workers while those workers also get partial unemployment benefits. So that's in effect immediately, and Department of Labor has been working closely with my staff to make sure that they have all of the information needed when people have questions about it. But again, our role is really to get people employed, and Department of Labor remains the expert on determining who's eligible for unemployment and not. My staff continue to work primarily remotely, and we are able to offer most of our services remotely, and our virtual workshops every month throughout the Capital Region are going really well. We've partnered with other Capital Region career centers on a variety of topics to co-facilitate virtual workshops for job seekers, and that's been going really well and continues. I continue to focus on barriers to employment. So I'm working on issues around childcare and transportation. And as you know, we did launch a childcare survey for the last month. And so we'll start looking at that data soon to determine which areas and what gaps there are that we want to focus on in getting more childcare centers open, particularly in the rural areas or wherever the survey results show that it's needed. We can help train people to open their own childcare center. Where Southern Adirondack Childcare Network does the training and the testing, but we would help pay for the classes. So we do feel like there's an opportunity there to address the childcare needs, and then the startup costs are really the other issues. And we hope that the business community can be a part of sponsoring some of those programs. So as we get the childcare survey results back, I'm happy to share that with the board. Any questions around childcare before I move on to transportation? So one of the things that I wanted feedback on from the committee today is how we go about getting more information, particularly from the rural areas that do not have transportation, about folks who would be interested in working in the field of hospitality, for example, if transportation was provided, like a shuttle. We have to be able to show Greater Glens Falls Transit or another transportation company what the needs are, how many people, what days, what places, what towns, and determining the demand before we can advocate for some of those services to exist. And so one of my ideas is to use our unemployment claim list that we get from Department of Labor to reach out to Warren County residents and continue to ask them questions about the transportation gaps where they live, and then see their interest if they were able to get transportation into the village, for example, to work in the hospitality field. But I wanted to ask the committee if you had other suggestions for how we reach out to people in your communities about their transportation gaps in their area.
That's a great question, and a tough one to prove need, for sure. Anybody want to weigh in here? Anybody in the boardroom?
Chairwoman Hogan, it's Rachel. If I can just add, as it relates to this, Liza, Craig Leggett was just appointed to the Adirondack Glens Falls Greater Transportation Board, and part of that reasoning was to try to talk about the connection of access for transportation and as a region as a whole. So that might be a good person for you to hook up with, Liza, and have some more discussions as well. I think you're going to find that Supervisor Leggett can really play a very important role in that connection between the urban and rural areas. Supervisor Leggett, I'm not so sure that you know about that appointment, but congratulations.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sieber. I will with Supervisor Leggett.
Oh, he disappeared. Liza, most of our towns have senior transportation initiatives, but these are not people who are looking to enter the workforce. Can we use any of that information to prove need?
That's a great question, but I do feel like it's a different population.
It is. It is. But they would also take advantage of that initiative, you know, it overlaps.
Right. The goal is that we would start with a workforce shuttle, for example, and then once it gets going and it evolves, then we would see that there's a greater need for the larger community.
Gotcha.
There is another company who does workforce transportation in other counties south of us, and they're interested in expanding here. Of course, I would rather support our local organizations and businesses in Greater Glens Falls Transit, but either way, I have to have the data to show them the demand.
All right. Well, everybody, feel free to reach out to Liza if you have any thoughts on this. Liza, when are you going to be compiling this data and getting it back to the Transportation Council?
I do think it'll be ongoing, but the goal is the sooner the better, especially since we're still unsure about we're likely not having J1 workers in the summer. We want to make sure that we're able to recruit workers from maybe more rural areas and have transportation provided. And we're just looking at all options that exist in terms of making that happen. So the sooner the better.
Is there any value in surveying the schools, the older the high schoolers?
Well, I'll get into that in a little bit about our initiatives with the schools for recruiting for summer work. But we could probably add that to the agenda in terms of when we're presenting to schools. So that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Sure. So the next item I just wanted to be on everybody's radar. We are working on expanding a bike share program into Warren County. And we met with CDTA last week. GGFT was there. The Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council is in the loop in support of this as well. And we're finalizing a proposal to share with Warren County as well as any municipalities that would be involved. So CDTA and Mobility Cloud, that's the maintenance team that works on the bikes with them. They came to look at site proposals last week. And I just wanted everybody to be aware that this information will be forthcoming. I know Supervisor Strauss has an interest in supporting the biking community, and so I do plan to have conversations with him offline. But I just wanted to keep it on your radar because a bike share program is a program that would benefit residents, the workforce, tourists, because we don't see the outdoor recreation boom going anywhere anytime soon. And it really makes a lot of sense for our area, and it's not really an innovative idea. Actually, the rest of the world is already doing this, and I really want to get us up to speed and give people more options for transportation, affordable options. So there's a number of ways that we can do this, and I just wanted to keep it on your radar that information and that proposal is forthcoming. Any questions about that?
Anybody have any questions? Anybody in the boardroom, Amanda?
No, doesn't appear to be.
All right. Thank you, Liza. Thanks for a wealth of information there.
Sure. I have a couple more points if I have time.
Oh, you do? Great. Keep going.
So in February, we're going to be launching our hospitality training program, and this subcommittee I've been chairing is a derivative from the task force and the hospitality communications group, and that my committee includes SUNY Adirondack members and local hospitality leaders and Jib Siplon. I'm calling this program the PUSH Training Program, Pathways Up for Success in Hospitality. And it includes a lot of soft skills, online learning through metrics. That's metrics with an X that we pay for out of my office. And then also another component is the A to D, arrival to departure training through the Lake George Chamber. Our goal is to get more people into the field of hospitality. They will see all of the different positions that are available in retail, food and beverage, and accommodations. We especially want to recruit younger people, high school students. We need them engaged in our community. They were really helpful last summer in supporting our hospitality industry, and we need them again. So So the goal is that we're launching this program, this training program in February, sometime in February, so that people can be trained in the spring and then hired this summer, spring and summer. Many of the businesses will be offering automatic interviews when somebody completes this training program. And it also will be a launching pad to get more people into SUNY Adirondack, because there will be leaders who stand out in this program, and will encourage them to enroll in SUNY Adirondack for a hospitality certificate or degree. The other reason it's really important to get youth engaged in summer work, I've been, as a former education administrator, I've been very concerned about how the pandemic has impacted youth. And we need to make sure that our local youth are engaged in constructive use of their time, that they're gaining job skills, and that they have access to other mentors in our community and are rooted into the business community here. So any suggestions or support in making sure that we are getting these opportunities in front of young people through schools and recreation programs, all of those suggestions are welcome. Any questions about the PUSH training program? And then finally, I'll just share that we'll continue to break down barriers to employment. I'm working closely with Sheriff LaFar on the mandated criminal justice reform. Prior to the pandemic starting, we would estimate that at least one person who visited our career center every day had a criminal record. And businesses are not often supportive of hiring folks with criminal records. So I just wanted people to know that I continue to work on that. We have our partnership with social services that continues to go very well, and people getting jobs from that Pathways program with our partnership. And long-term, we'll continue to focus on skills-based hiring, which is really the state and national focus. So our partnerships with SUNY Adirondack and BOCES, and really aligning workforce development and economic development. So I'm very excited about all the things that we're working on, and not only for our economic recovery, but our long-term thriving. And I believe that's all my updates I have for today, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the committee have any questions for Liza?
Yes, Supervisor Hogan, Brad McGowan.
Go ahead, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. I'll just make it short. Liza, I just want to, that unemployment, I think was one of the best things that have come up, that we give the part-timers help. And that's a lot better. I feel that giving everybody extra money to sit at home, it gets our workforce out there, and it gets people, it keeps them motivated. So that was very encouraging to hear today, and thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Liza.
Thank you.
All right, anybody in the general public, Don?
Morning, nothing on YouTube at this point.
Thank you. We'll move on to the planning department.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, there was something just posted, if you can bear with me, from Andrea Palmer. Is it all right if I add that?
Please do.
She was adding if there was a plan for funding the transportation program. It sounds very promising.
Oh, did Liza leave already? There she is.
I'm here. I'm not sure if she was asking about the bike program or the shuttle program. The shuttle program, we would have to work that out. For example, it could be about $150 a day for a shuttle, but all the hotels could split the cost. For the bike share program, the operating costs are $25,000 a year, and that would be split between the municipalities under an MOU.
Anything else, Don?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, great. Wayne, you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Another year. Okay. The agenda materials were provided to the committee. There are two committee actions that we are requesting. The first one is to authorize the department to apply for community development block grant funding. As indicated on the agenda sheet, the rationale is not, it got carried over accidentally from a previous year. And on the resolution request form itself at the bottom, it does talk about the process that we would use. to select projects. I provided the NOFA, the Notice of Funding Availability from the state for the program. There's about 49 million available, split between different program areas, public facilities, public infrastructure, and some planning money. And there's a split percentage-wise that's identified in the NOFA, how they're going to look at that. We would look at probably resubmitting for the Pottersville Water District if the town's interested in that. There are some hurdles to clear with that as far as outside funding agencies or denial letters, but Pat is looking into that with the grantor agency. So we would really look to take projects that are on the draft capital improvement program and see if we can advance those. There's two criteria that are really significant with this program, and that is that there must be a benefit. 70% of the funds must benefit 51% low mod population. In other words, you have to be the area selected or the project selected has to benefit people with 51% of the median income or less. There's a couple ways to discern that, and that's either through census data or surveys. So that's one criteria. The second is that if you use community development block grant funds, otherwise known as small cities funds, you have to, in conjunction with other funding sources, completely address the identified need. You can't say that we're going to do 5,000 feet of pipe and we'll do another 5,000 next year. That's not going to cut it. They want to see the entire project done. So that bodes issues for us with Countryside, because that's one of the things that we're looking at is the Beardsley report. I've talked with Kevin Hajos about potentially funding, submitting an application for that. The dilemma there is that the funding limit for a public facility is $300,000, and the Beardsley report was in the millions. Although talking with Kevin, there's a lot of things that are wish list rather than necessary structurally or infrastructure wise. So we're still looking at that. But I still think we're going to be significantly short, even with what the county has in the budget this year. But again, having discussions with Kevin. So what I would request of the committee is authorization to submit basically multiple applications under the Small Cities Program. It is due, the applications are due March 5th. And at last Friday's board meeting, I appreciate the board and entertaining the motion from the floor to hold the required public hearing. If that had not occurred, then we could not have submitted an application on March 5th. So that's my spiel on that.
Can I have a motion to bring this to the floor?
Motion by Supervisor Garrity.
Thank you, Kevin. A second? Supervisor Leggett, all in favor?
Well, discussion.
We're bringing it to the floor. So all in favor of bringing it? Ready?
It's on the floor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. And this will be properly advertised according to HCR rules and regs.
Yes. Yeah. The public hearing notice, I just approved it. Amanda Allen has the public hearing notice, and that's our requirement. We use their language. Yes.
Anybody else? Questions? Comments? I'll call the question now then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right.
The second committee action request is a resolution to close out the CD74 account. I provided the closeout agreement with the state of New York on that. And the November meeting, I did have the similar resolution that included both CD74 and 75. We ran into a glitch basically with the treasurer's office on 75. So Supervisor Frazier and I had a discussion during the meeting, and I asked that we just return it to committee. We're not bringing 75 at this point because I really haven't had a chance to work with the treasurer's office on 75, but we would like to close out CD 74.
I'll make that motion from the floor.
I'll second the motion, John Stroud.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity and Supervisor Stroud. Discussion? I don't see any discussion, so I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
At
Wayne.
this point, we've got 10 minutes left in our time. I would ask Sarah to kind of briefly go through our annual report. Basically, it's not a written report this year, although there are links in what she's presenting that can take you to physical documents if you want. So Sarah?
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. So as Wayne mentioned, in the past, we've done a hard copy document because we're all separate this year, decided to use a different format. So this is an interactive website. I'm gonna just very briefly go through it in our 10 minutes here, but we'll post this on the a link to this on the planning department's website, on the county website, and you can feel free to peruse it at your leisure. So I think we share the sentiment with everybody that we're happy to have 2020 behind us. Just briefly, this past year in the planning department, we published 5 reports, either written in-house or managed consultant reports. We spent about $411,000 on grant funded projects, and given the fact that everybody had a lot of in the office time this year and many of our projects were delayed because of the pandemic, we spent a lot of time doing paperwork and closing grants out. We're able to get 6 grants closed out this year, so that was a big accomplishment. Census 2020 was obviously one of our most important projects during the course of last year, and we had a lot of bumps in the road and changes in direction, both with state funding and census timing. And our outreach plans obviously went from a lot of in-person events to social media and digital outreach, but we'll see. The apportionment numbers should be released shortly, so we'll see where we fall. We're hopeful that our outreach did have an impact and improved our numbers over what they would have been otherwise. So you can see here on the left-hand side, just to give everybody a heads up, I do have linked and embedded content in this, so you can go back and review and get access to additional documents. Another one of our big accomplishments, thanks to Chris, was our Climate Smart Bronze certification. So we're now one of only 55 communities throughout the state that has this bronze certification that gives us extra points when we apply for grant funding. The number of projects completed qualified us for that bronze certification, and there's a link to a really nice Adirondack Explorer article about the county certification. If you haven't read that, I'd recommend taking a minute to read it, and there's a link to the state Climate Smart program. So continue to work on this. Chris will continue to take the lead with the Climate Smart program in 2021. As part of the Climate Smart certification, Chris completed an energy benchmarking report for 29 county-owned buildings. So this report details the annual energy cost and electricity and natural gas use in each of these 29 county-owned buildings. This is kind of a benchmarking set of numbers so we can quantify improvements as we go forward in implement changes. The County Planning Board, this is the responsibility again of Chris to review the projects submitted that require review by the County Planning Board. We saw a slight drop off over our 2019 projects, just by about 29 projects. So there wasn't a substantial drop off. Still reviewed about 260 applications. This is an interactive map. So if you want to go back in here and review the projects, you can click on any of those dots and it'll tell you what the project location was, who the applicant was, what type of project it was. And then also as required by law, this is a link to the 2020 report here. It's just a one-page document that lists the number of projects for each town and has a few graphs and charts in it. So feel free to take a look at that when you have a chance. COVID obviously was a big, I hate to use the word project for us, but put a lot of time into the development of the COVID Hub website. It has had about 200,000 views since its inception in April, and I wanted to thank Chairwoman Sieber for taking the initiative to help get this off the ground. I think it's turned into a great resource for our county residents. We have over 4,000 page views a day, so it's really turned into one of the go-to resources for residents in the pandemic. I also wanted to thank Dawn too for being so good to work with. We've gotten to know each other extremely well over the last 9 months, spent a lot of time talking and emailing back and forth every day. And I have felt really happy to be able to work with him on this project. Another big project was infrastructure mapping. Amanda spent a lot of time this past year getting all of the sewer and water infrastructure data into the GIS. So she used a variety of different resources from the town sewer and water departments, from CAD drawings to old scanned documents to hard copy maps. So this was a big project. This is also an interactive map, so feel free to play with this as well. This has all of the sewer and water mains, laterals, manholes, information about all of the infrastructure throughout the county. And we will, during the course of 2021, be working with town staff in the water and sewer departments and teaching them how to maintain this data in the field. So that's something to come next year. In addition, Amanda converted County DPW's entire spreadsheet of signs for every single county-owned sign throughout the county. There's thousands of them into GIS, and we'll have more to come on that in 2021. That's the beginning of the big infrastructure mapping project in collaboration with DPW. Our Smart Growth Grant, we completed nearly everything in that grant, except for one item that had to be delayed because of the pandemic, and that's the letterboxing trail. We got a lot of work done in that, but we're hoping to have a launch of that this spring, pandemic allowing. We'll see, it may have to get delayed for a few months past that. But we completed the installation of the new display in the Visitors Center. If you haven't had a chance to stop by and see that, I'd recommend going and taking a look. Also continued the social media for First Wilderness, Instagram and Facebook. So there's a link to both of those. Those are still ongoing, being maintained regularly. Chris did a number of grant projects for Lake George and Scroon Lake. He was able to close out 2 of the Lake George projects that we had taken over management from the village. So lots of projects included in these, including erosion and sediment control, a report on the economic value of clean water, boat washing, Eurasian milfoil control, and also road salt reduction. So there's links to all of the reports that have been generated as part of these grant programs here on the left. Also, our first wilderness grant projects. We closed out one of the grants, which included a sewer report for North Creek, a corridor market study, Chestertown to Pottersville Trail, and then a Stony Creek Community Center design. All of those are linked there on the left. This right here in the center is an interactive website you can scroll through. It's been updated with the status of all of the projects for our first wilderness grants through the years and where we stand on everything. Most everything is winding down at this point. We have requested a couple of extensions due to pandemic delays, but most of our projects are near completion. Countryside, as Wayne mentioned earlier in the meeting, both of these projects are complete. That was the new sewer line to Countryside, and then also a building assessment study. There's a link to that building assessment study. So current projects that we're still working on that started during 2020 and will continue into this coming year is, one is the Lake George Action Plan. Chris is managing this for the town of Queensbury, and we've partnered with the Lake George Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board. They've begun the development of the plan, and that will continue throughout 2021. Pat has been working on the housing study, so she's spent quite a few hours getting data together, ready to put out an RFP to hire a consultant to assist with this project. And then the capital improvement plan. We've put a lot of time into developing a planning process and developing the various databases, separating them out into a procedure that will make sense going forward. So we've met with the county administrator, and there'll be much more to come on this in 2021. One good thing that came out of the pandemic, as many others have mentioned, is our increased collaboration with partners, many of whom we've worked on in years past, but we're able to work even more together this year, and then lots of new partnerships as well this year, which have been great. I wanted to mention too that Pat has been doing quite a bit of work assisting the city of Glens Falls after Ed's passing to try to continue some of those projects that Ed was working on. So pandemic willing, we have big plans for 2021. The capital projects, I think, is probably one of our main projects for the coming year. Continue to work on infrastructure and obviously look for funding wherever it's available, and apply for any grants that we're aware of. And that's it. Let me see if I can figure out how to get back to the screen here. Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I have a statement I'd like to make. Kevin, Andrea, if that's okay.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the planning department. They, every one of them over there has been more than helpful during this last year, and anything you want from planning, they're usually right there. They get it done for you. And I just appreciate all the help we've received over there, whether it be the First Wilderness Grant projects or any mapping that we've asked for. They've been more than helpful. And hopefully with this COVID, when COVID gets behind us, we'll be able to complete a couple other projects up there. The other thing I'd like to say is the capital project list that was instituted is especially very helpful in this time with these community development block grants, because now all you gotta do is go to your file and pull a couple projects you think it would be good, it will fit in, and it makes it a lot easier on us than rethinking everything. So to the people who have developed that, and to Ron Conover for suggesting that, I really thank them for that. But the planning department, has gone above and beyond any time we've ever needed them from Warrensburg. So I want to thank you very much, and hopefully we'll keep working with you in 2021. Thanks.
Thanks, Supervisor Garrity. Those are great thoughts, and definitely we're going to be talking about that capital projects plan a lot this year, I hope. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody in the boardroom, Amanda?
Nope.
All right. Anybody from the public, Don?
Hi, Chairwoman Hogan. Nothing, no comment publicly, though I will echo Supervisor Garrity's comments on the planning department, and in particular Sarah's help with the COVID hub website. That has been a fantastic resource for us to have for our residents during this, and she has put in many hours, weekends, nights, and all hours to keep up with everything. So thank you to Wayne for allowing her to do that, and thank you, Sarah, for doing that.
If I may add something, Chairwoman?
Yes, Wayne.
Okay, to say that 2020 was a challenging year would be an understatement, but I do feel that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, we worked in the office for part of the year. Then most people were home, then we came back in, and then I sent most everybody home. The ability of the staff, Sarah, Amanda, and Chris, to work from home, not have to micromanage them, to, broad brush approach and say, these are the tasks, and they go and they get it done. I can't say enough that, I'm proud of these people. And that's a true statement. They've done what they are supposed to, and they've gone beyond that. As Supervisor Garrity said, every time you turn around, there's something going on, and boom, it's taken care of. So I just want to publicly inform the committee and anybody who's watching this that, I appreciate it. And I think the employees of Warren County are dedicated to the job. So.
Very true. Very true. Wayne, do you have anything else for us?
No, that's all I have.
All right, Don, I'll check with you one more time. Is there any public comment?
No, we are all set. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Supervisor Garrity.
Thank you. Second? Everybody wants to stay? What?
I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you this year.